Well, we're here at the CCA workbench like we are every week, and
Yes,
we're talking
sir.
about the rigs and techniques. Now, Dave, you chose to talk about tarpon this week and how the tarpon fishing has had its challenges in Texas over
Yes.
the last few years.
Well,
So why don't we start with that?
Well, I talked to a fella named Mike Williams, who's been the king of tarpon fishing in Galveston, Texas, since it began, really. And what happened is in the 30s, 40s, and 50s, you could catch tarpon just like you could catch them everywhere else in Texas.
Right
You
off
could
the
catch them
beach.
right off the beach and the inlets. And in the early 60s, Texas started damming up a lot of the rivers for, I guess, power. And what happened was those upper Texas rivers, and what happens is they stopped getting a lot of that fresh water, and the tarpon disappeared. And everybody thought, oh, there's just no more tarpon. They've gone. We don't know why. They started blaming, Mexico to the south. They think, oh, they're netting them all and use them for cat food and whatnot. But that wasn't the deal. Mike found out. He would be fishing out there, and he every time he caught a tarpon for like 10 years, he'd put a little X on the map, and then he figured out, oh, these things are all in a line about 2 to 3 miles off the beach and 40 feet of water now. And he started hanging some of them up in the 80s, saying, hey, look, there's big tarpon out there. And people started getting on him. It was the only way that you could get people to start realizing that they're out there is to hang them every once in a while. So
do they still killing tarpon in Texas?
No.
Okay.
But what they do, there's a big fishery for them there now. And they do it a lot different, than a lot of places. What they'll do is, they'll go out there to that zone, that Tarpon Alley zone, in 30, 40 feet of water, about 2 miles off the beach, and they'll start looking for them. You'd ride up and down the beach, and you see them. If you see them, roll in or getting in a chain or whatever. What happens is these fish are making a big clockwise rotation in the Gulf of Mexico from the Yucatan, and they get up off Galveston in the springtime, in April, and then back again for the other way, coming back the other way.
Back to the Yucatan.
Yep, in September.
Ah.
So there's two good times to fish for them, but June in Galveston is probably the best time to go. And Mike says if you're going to go fishing for tarpon and you want to catch tarpon, that's what you have to do. You have to fish for tarpon. You have to
fish for them.
You have to be like when you're fishing for a blue marlin. You don't catch a lot of tarpon by accident. You don't catch a lot of blue marlins by accident. You have to target them. And what he does, well,
what are we
a
gonna
lot
use?
of guys troll, and they troll these baits called coon pops.
Okay.
And I used to use them a long time ago in Boca Grande, and they actually outlawed the coon pop,
Right.
which is a circle hook with a jig head wired.
A breakaway jig.
Jig wired to the circle hook. And you can troll this, or jig it on the bottom, or cast it. Just
Right.
when you see the fish up on the surface, you just go ahead and make a cast at them. And they'll target the fish with these a lot. And when they're trolling, they'll troll like 4 lines, real slow, about 2 miles an hour, and they'll throw these out there, and they'll troll them on, like 40-pound line, 40-pound monofilament, 65-pound braid, about 2 knots, and they'll try to get those fish when they're in that 30, 40 feet of water.
Now, do they fish for bait, or do they throw any of the big plugs?
Well, they can also use live baits, and what they'll do is they'll fish a live bait under a cork. They'll get in that zone, see rolling fish, and then they'll put a live bait under a cork, a live mullet, a sugar trout, or a croaker. Those are his 3 baits that he prefers. He says, but any little live fish will probably work.
So when they put the live fish into the deal, Dave, do they do like we do a live pinfish? We hook him on a jig head.
Right.
Put the hook out of the top of his mouth.
That's exactly how they do it.
And then we can throw him exactly where we want to. So they do the same
They
thing.
do
They
the
can
same
just
thing.
drop
They'll put
him
it
straight down
they'll
30 feet, 40 feet, cast it.
They'll even troll a dead mullet or a dead trout, or with the same deal. They'll put the jig head up to a big heavy jig.
So
and
he
then jig
trolls
him.
correctly.
Yeah, you got to make sure he's, even with these, I made all these coon pops because it's kind of hard to buy them where I live. But I made all these with just a piece of copper wire, a short piece of copper wire, a 12-aught circle hook. You got to watch the numbers on circle hooks because they're all over the place.
Right.
This can be a 12-aught for one
Company.
one company, and it'd be a 10-aught for
somebody
another.
else. Yeah.
So, when you're going to build them, you just get you some copper wire, and you just wire the jig head straight to the shank. If you were going to be casting them, you might want to use some heavier stuff.
Right.
Just because you're going to be doing it over and over and over again, and you don't want to cast your jig off the circle hook.
Right.
The reason why they use this and why it's so effective is what happens is when this gets hooked, a lot of times if he's shaking his head real good, this jig will fall off. and therefore he doesn't have that weight working on the hook every time he shakes his head to get that thing off there. And that's why those spool techs, they do the same thing. They just come away, you know.
So it sounds like to me what we need to do is we need to convince CCA to undo all those dams. That'll be kind of cool. And then we can have our fresh water coming out.
Yeah.
Although we'd probably flood a lot of agriculture ground.
He says they stay away from the inlets, especially he catches most of them in the middle of the island between Galveston and St. Louis Pass, right in smack in the middle, as far away from the inlets as possible.
Wow.
Probably because they get a lot of boat traffic, he says.
Yeah.